What's up guys, it's Pliskin Boy here, still in quarantine, and if there's one thing I am really missing, it's my MMA classes. And I want to talk about some form of martial arts. And since my channel is a gaming channel, the best way to do that is to make another CQC video. So here we are. Pliskin Boy presents Is CQC Practical? Part 3. All the other moves I didn't go over in Metal Gear Solid 5. So first up we have the Ground Zeroes version of the chokehold. Now, unlike Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, where it is a normal rear naked choke, here we have a forearm chokehold. So let's talk about some of the differences. Well, first off, rather than using your bicep and your forearm to cut off connection between the carotid arteries, you're using the blade of your forearm on your left arm, and then your hand behind the head and also part of your forearm to put pressure down and slice into their carotid arteries. Whereas in a normal rear naked chokehold, you can just have your enemy's head facing forward. Here you need to move it slightly to the side to expose said carotid arteries to the blade of your forearm. Now, this is a harder position to get your opponent into with them struggling. However, it is just as effective as a normal rear naked choke. If someone has you in this choke and they're already choking you, it's nigh impossible to escape. Notice how the position is quite similar, however the bicep is less involved. This is because this choke uses Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu's philosophy of leverage to its full potential, using your bones rather than your strength, shifting their neck into an unnatural position and letting that position do all the work for you. Also, a quick note, Snake still does that great job of trapping his opponent's arm so he can resist a lot less. Next up, we have a move that's not just a lot more easier to practice but to explain. Now for all my guys that play rugby or football, this is going to be an easy move to do. It's a tackle. You're running, you throw yourself forward, you use your body weight to wrap around your opponent's midsection and take them down to the ground with your weight and your momentum. Now, if you're a bigger and heavy guy, most of the time this is going to work for you. But for you smaller guys trying to do this on a bigger guy, you're going to have some trouble. Also note that when doing this, there is always the risk of being countered, and there is a way to counter this, I can explain it on another episode, and there's also a risk of being put into a guillotine choke. So while this does have its practical uses, it comes with its risks. So yeah, if you're a bigger, heavier guy, totally recommend it. If you're not, you might want to think twice before tackling someone. Next up, we have the way that Snake will grab people from behind cover and drag them over. Now, note here that it's not just Snake grabbing and pulling with all of his force. He uses the ledge to strike their midsection and bend them, using the leverage to have them flop over onto his side. Now, is this practical? Yes, if you pull someone and their spine hits that back wall, their natural reaction will be to bend, and again, that philosophy of leverage from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a whole bunch of other martial arts will come into play. What isn't practical is how easily they get in a position for Snake to grab them. When they fall, it's most likely going to be messy, and there's no guarantee of having them in a good hold. Now, of course, you could wrap around a chokehold and drag them down, but rather than neatly falling down in a way where Snake is crouched, you'll probably be lying down on the floor. Something to keep in mind if you're going to pull somebody over something over to you. Next up, we have a move that looks cool, but isn't at all practical. Notice that when Snake is going for his pistol disarm, he drags it and uses leverage in the wrist, which is recommended. However, the entire time the barrel is pointed at his midsection, all the way up until he flips it around. Now, within that split second, that's enough time for the enemy to pull the trigger and shoot you in the stomach. So this pistol takedown, disarm, it's not practical. You can look up on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of guys out there that love doing pistol disarms because it looks cool as shit, and there's practical ones that you can look on. So you can look cool without doing something that'll get you shot in the stomach, as seen here. But don't worry too much, the rifle disarm is a lot more practical. Here Snake is doing his normal combo, keeping that barrel away from him, unlike what he was doing with the pistol disarm. And while the barrel's away from him and the enemy's grip is still on the pistol grip, he grabs the barrel and the butt of the rifle, twisting them against his opponent's grip and then pushing it into him, causing a little bit of a push-pull reflex. That shift in movement and weight, getting the guy off balance, and then putting that pressure on his wrist would get the rifle out of his hand. This is a much better and practical disarm, mostly because, remember just one thing, keep the barrel away from your body. Getting back to some retarded movesets, we have the knife disarm, when enemies come at you with knives. Now, the enemy's coming at Snake with what's called advanced grip, and anyone that knows anything about advanced grip or knife fighting is that while advanced grip has issues with the range you're given, it is very difficult to disarm you. Snake literally grabs the guy's hand and just whooshes it off to the side. Nobody's gonna do that. Nobody's gonna follow your hand and go out. That looks more like a presentation rather than practical fighting. No one's gonna let go of the knife that easily, especially in advanced grip. If anything, Snake should take advantage of the lack of range that this guy's gonna have, step back, and draw a gun. Otherwise, if he tried to do this, he would get cut. So this move is not practical whatsoever. Snake is still very adept at handling enemies that don't bring out knives on him though. Here with the rifle attack where the enemy tries to jam the barrel of the rifle into Snake, Snake is smart and simply gets out of the way, jams his fingers into his opponent's throat, swooshes the gun barrel away from him, remembering his mistakes with the pistol disarm, and then delivers a finishing hook to put the enemy down. This is practical. Only issue is jamming your fingers towards someone can lead to injury. So perhaps it's better to slightly bend your fingers and go with like a forward, kind of like a horizontal palm strike where you're striking with your fingers rather than your palm, if that makes any sense, or just going with a straight punch to somebody's throat. Either way, even if you went with your fingers, it would probably still work. There's just some issues and risk of injury. The next part that's practical is that Snake uses his left hand right after he does that strike to slap the rifle away from him, eliminating that sense of danger. And then the hook, he delivers it once there's no more danger from the rifle, the enemy's already off balance and immobilized, and just uses it to finish them and put them on the ground to stun them. Now, will this knock somebody out? There's a chance, that's never guaranteed. However, it is a great move to get, first off, a rifle out of your face and out of your way, and also to strike an enemy and put them on the ground, i.e. putting the fight in your favor. Next up we have the Bionic Punch, and I'm gonna just flat out say this only works because Snake has a metal hand. Now, don't get me wrong, running at someone and punching them full force will do damage to them, but it's also gonna fuck up your wrist. So, a more practical version of doing this is running up to someone and slamming your elbow into them, using your weight to cause more damage. Here you're putting way too much pressure on your wrist. So, the way Venom does it, it's not practical. You do it with your elbow, it is practical. Again, the only reason he can get away with doing it is because he has that bionic arm. Next up, I figured it would be fun to feature in the magazine takedown where Snake can throw a magazine into an opponent's face and knock them out. Now, you can throw something at somebody's face and knock them out. And depending on the magazine, if it's metal and if it's heavier, like a polymer magazine would probably just piss them off, but a hard metal object thrust at somebody's face could potentially knock them out. The way Snake throws it with an underhand, probably not. But if you were to do overhand, be accurate and have full force, yeah, you could knock someone out or at the very least stun them and do a lot of damage. Would I recommend this? No, there's too many variables that could go wrong. It's much better to just attack them outright or have a weapon that's much better at handling things at a distance. But if you're in a pinch and you're just going to throw something at someone and you got a good throwing arm, by all means. Here we go again, Snake is still not having any luck with knife attacks. Now with this one here, the enemy just lets go of the knife. The way Snake stabs him, spinning around and using his body weight to really thrust the knife into him, yeah, that's practical, but The fact if someone's jumping at you and coming down with a machete, you're not just going to be able to grip it out of their hands. It's going to be a lot trickier. Just get out of the damn way and don't get cut. Now here's a knife attack that would be practical if you have the same protection that Venom has on his arm. Notice how he blocks the strike with his metal arm, knowing the knife isn't going to go through that. If you try to block a knife with your arm like that, you're not gonna have a good time. But let's say you're wearing some sort of armor or protection on your hand, on your arm, and you block it like that, what follows after is extremely practical. Snake goes with both hands, grabs the large grip, and twists it out of the opponent's hand using pressure against the thumb. The thumb is the weakest holding finger, and if you put pressure against it, odds are it's gonna let go. This is why we have stuff like Gable Grip in BJJ. Anyways, back on topic. After grabbing the knife out of the guy's hand, he delivers a push kick right above the knee. This is extremely practical because this does a lot of damage. It doesn't matter if your opponent is smaller or larger than you. Shifting all of your weight and pushing it in that spot will cause the knee to pop out of the socket, causing the enemy to collapse down. Now, rather than going on their knee, they'll probably just hit the floor right away, but that kick is extremely practical. Also, the way Snake again uses his body weight to jam the large knife, the machete, into his opponent is very practical. To this move, I simply say the same thing I said to all my other knife disarms. The way Snake slashes, yeah, that's fine. But the enemy is not gonna just let you yank a knife out of their hands. This isn't practical, and if you tried to do what you see here, you would end up getting cut. Now here we go on some more advice for when opponents are just grabbing you and trying to get close at you, not knowing what they're really doing, trying to bite you, claw at you. Just someone who's completely out of their mind and angry at you. Snake does the smart thing and puts his forearm on the opponent's neck to create some distance. What I don't like is that he follows this up with a hook to get them off of him. Now, it's not that this isn't practical, it's just that you really need to create a lot of space, and if they're bigger and stronger than you, they're not going to let you do that. So here, an elbow would be much more practical. That being said, if they don't have the strength and they're not letting go and you have the strength to push them off you like Snake is doing here, using his left arm to create distance, punching them repeatedly in the face will do damage sooner or later. So again, it's not that this isn't practical. Doing this will do damage and they will let go, get knocked out, or lose teeth eventually. You might just have a sore hand afterwards. Also, I have to say there's something really satisfying about watching Snake just punch a guy repeatedly. Out of all these zombie punch variations though, the most practical is the one where he just punches the zombie before it even gets onto him. If someone's coming at you and they're at the right distance and you deliver a hook, it's gonna do the right amount of damage and get the results that you want and keep them from getting onto you in the first place, and that's honestly the better alternative. Last up, we have the ladder drag down. Now, if you're hanging off a ledge and there's an opponent right there, there's a lot of games that do this that make it look easy to just reach up, grab them, and pull. Keep in mind you're using your own strength to hold yourself up, and you really need something to grab too. And if they're heavier than you, odds are you're just going to pull yourself up rather than dragging them down. So I'm not going to call this practical. Although if they have a lot of equipment on, like a backpack, and you're using leverage, and you have something to grab to, absolutely, why not? Go ahead and try this.
Once you've identified him.
Alright guys, this has been Pliskin coming to you again from quarantine. Hope you're all staying inside and staying safe. This thing will pass, we just gotta be smart about it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed another CQC video. I love making these. The first one was popular, the second one was popular, so I figured, why not? Anyways guys, this has been Pliskin. Stay safe, stay healthy, over and out.